Bavinck is after a very holistic vision of all things and a holistic way of living. And he unfolds science and wisdom under this category of worldview. And worldview stems out of science and wisdom, but worldview circles back around to science and wisdom. So I do think that he gets at a kind of, he doesn't really get a definition of worldview per
Hmm.
se, but he gets at a method of building worldview,
He shows
especially
it to
in
you. Yeah. He lives it to
50
you. Yeah.
and 51. In pages 50 and 51, he talks about how at the a couple of lines after that first full paragraph, it says, just as sense perception is the basis of all science, the results of science are and remain the starting point of philosophy. So he's trying to argue there that you start off with science and sense perception and you get your material from there. But he doesn't want to limit it to just science, because a few lines after that, it says that wisdom is grounded on science. So science is a starting point for wisdom, but it's not limited to it. It aims above science and seeks to press through to first principles, and tries therefore to trace back all the sciences back to their first principles. And then he's going to argue the very beginning of the next paragraph, a couple lines down, it says, the world rests in thoughts and that ideas control all things. So he's trying to say, you start off with science, you start out with sense perception, you build up with the data inductively, then you trace back all this data to the first principles. Once you get to the first principles, you realize that ideas control all things. And then in the next page, it says that um, it is built on the realities of ideas because it is indeed the science of the idea, Wissenschaft der Idee. And because it seeks the idea of the whole and the parts and of the general in particular, it tacitly proceeds from the Christian faith, which states that the world is grounded in wisdom and it reveals wisdom in its whole and all in its parts. And then, of course, he talks about the organic motif there. So he's trying to say, once you get to the first principles, you find out that the first principles for every science are actually divine ideas. And so a worldview seeks to find the unity behind the disparate sciences, a
Yeah.
unity behind the first principles. And those principles for religion, all different sciences are actually the same. And you asked about sources too, Camden. He cites there Friedrich von Trendelenburg, who is a German empirical idealist. And some people think that empiricist and idealism, they're basically a binary, but Trendelenburg's existence actually contradicts that, because he's an empiricist. And at the same time, he argues that as you empirically study the world, you're going to discover that ideas govern the whole thing. And he cites that German philosopher there. So that's an interesting thing.
Interesting.
But I do think that page 50 and 51, he gets at the method of worldview very clearly.
Yeah.